Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm finally getting around to shooting that video on how to make a coconut pineapple banana bread. Now this is my own recipe that I just came up with, and I've, just by taking my basic banana bread recipe, that is also my own recipe, and just adding some tweaks to it and just some unique little things. And so we're going to go over that. As usual with most banana bread recipes, you're going to start with 3 bananas. This is going to make 2 regular sized loaves of your quick bread, your sweet bread, like you would normally see. Now here's a little trick about bananas that you might not know. Even though these ones are ones that we bought recently and they're starting to get to that point where they're getting pretty ripe, that's when you want to use them for bread. Here's another trick. I was debating whether or not I was going to do it this way or not today, but we still have a lot of bananas to work through, so I decided I'd use these. But you can also take bananas when they start getting to that point where they're getting too ripe to use for anything else, but you don't want them to get so ripe you can't even use them for banana bread. Throw them in the freezer. Like here's a couple of bananas that are frozen from the last batch. We had a couple of bananas left. It wasn't enough to make a whole batch of banana bread, so I threw them in the freezer to wait until I had enough. But all you have to do is snip the end off the banana right here and then just squeeze it out. Because then once it's been frozen and thawed, obviously you have to thaw it first, the banana is really, really mushy. You just squeeze it out. It's still just as good as taking a banana like this and using it a little bit fresher. It's a lot easier because it's already pretty much mashed. And so this is actually the easiest way to go. But again, I want to just go ahead and use these up, and I don't want to put any more bananas in the freezer right now. So just a little trick for the future. Yes, you can do that. Freeze those bananas and you can use them in banana pancakes, banana muffins, banana bread, anything, or even smoothies. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to start with a smaller bowl, put my bananas in there, and you can break them up or chop them up, however you want to do it, to get them to a point where they're easy to mash. And then I like to use a big salad fork for mashing the bananas, but it is best if you have them thoroughly mashed. And by the way, if you have a garden, throwing these banana peels out in your garden, I just throw them. This is how we compost things. I just throw things right on the garden. Some things go right to the berry plants and some things go just all over the garden. Banana peels, we throw them wherever because they add, this is where most of the nutrients are actually of the banana are in the peel. And so you're getting a lot of those minerals and they're going to go into the soil and feed your plant. I'll go ahead and finish this and I'll get back to you when I'm ready to add the next ingredients. Okay, now the next ingredient I'm going to add is my own homemade pineapple extract. And if you're interested in knowing how I make my extracts, I'll go ahead and link to the video down in the description box below. I didn't show the pineapple one, but it's made the same way. And so I use the Mother Earth freeze-dried pineapple, and then I just use my I think in this one I used a combination of the homemade wine and the non-GMO food grade glycerin. Now I say use up to a tablespoon. This is optional if you don't already have your pineapple extract made, but if you do have it made, go ahead and use this, or go ahead and get a batch started now so you can have it for the next time, because there's lots of uses that you can use this for. So I don't normally measure out my extracts. I just pour them in. But I wanted to show you this. If you can find one of these shot glasses, I'll go ahead and link to one on Amazon down below. You can obviously use a tablespoon, but these are nice for liquid ingredients because then you can just look for your tablespoon mark here. This even has half tablespoons marked out. I'm just going to go ahead and fill that up to the tablespoon mark here. You can see right there. And then just pour that in. You can use less, you can use more. It's totally up to you. Now you want to add this to your bananas. This is going to be the best way. And then you can continue mashing your bananas after you add this to it, because then that makes it a little bit easier. There's a little more liquid in there. Okay, so the next thing is your eggs. 3 to 4 eggs, depending on the size of your eggs. Some of my breads I use 3, sometimes I use 4. I'm going to go ahead and use 4 in this because of the ingredients I'm using. Having more eggs is going to help hold it together better. Mix those in there real good. Make sure you scramble them up. The next ingredient you want to add is coconut oil. I recommend going with virgin coconut oil, so you're getting that good coconut flavor in from the oil as well. And I like to get mine at Costco, as you can see, because I have found their organic coconut oil is the cheapest. They're the best for price, especially if you buy it in the store, not online, because if you buy it from the online store, you pay $3 more per container. And I'm going to use 2/3 cup of the oil. You'll want to make sure it's well melted. If you live in a place like we are where your coconut oil is going to be solid because it's colder, then make sure you warm it up, melt it first gently, and then pour that into your egg and banana mixture. All right, so here's the coconut oil. It's all nicely melted. We'll go ahead and pour that in there, and you're gonna want to mix it real good and not let it sit for too long. In fact, it probably would have been a better idea to mix the dry ingredients first. However, if you work fast, it won't be such a big deal. Maybe next time when I'm using the wet ingredients, I'll just go ahead and use a bigger bowl so that I can mix it more vigorously without making a big mess. So now we'll move on to our dry ingredients. Well, I'm going to be using a combination of my own home milled whole grain flours and some white flours. Because of all the things going into this bread, I don't want it to be too heavy, so I do like mixing in with a good organic white flour. But let's start with the organic home milled whole grain flour. It can be whatever combination you want. This particular one is emmer, spelt, and hard white wheat berries. So I'm going to use 1 cup of that. Okay, so got that in there. And then the next flour is just going to be a good organic unbleached white flour. So out of that I want 1.5 cups of that. Okay, so there we go on that. You don't want to use very much salt at all. The salt's going to help bring out the flavor, but last time I did this, I put in a little bit too much salt because my own recipe that I've written down, I never actually added any salt to the recipe. I would say don't go any higher than 1/2 teaspoon tops. I'm not even going to put that much in. I'm going to put about 1/4 teaspoon. Just a little bit. So you're going to want to use at least a cup of coconut. Now this coconut I did get on Amazon. It was an organic coconut, but last time I looked I couldn't find this particular one. But I buy in bulk, and then I always get organic unsweetened coconut, by the way, and then I vacuum seal it into jars. So I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit higher on the coconut ratio. I say up to 1.5 cups. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add another 1/2 cup of the coconut. And then of course you don't want to forget your baking powder. And this is one of the measurements I wanted to talk about, because this particular recipe, I have it down for 4.5 teaspoons. Now you can measure it that way, or you can simply go 3 tablespoons or 1.5 tablespoons. It's all the same measurement, but if you're using a tablespoon, just go 1.5 tablespoons. This particular thing, this scoop came out of some vitamin drink mix I bought years ago, and I saved it because it's a great scoop, and it happens to be 1.5 teaspoons. So 3 of these would equal 1.5 tablespoons. Okay, so all our dried ingredients are mixed together. And a lot of times when I'm making sweetbreads like this, I like to add seeds. Again, because of the coconut though, all the coconut I put in there, and it's already going to be a little bit heavier as it is, I'm going to go ahead and leave out the seeds. But things like poppy seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, and flax seeds are good things to add. With the flax seeds, if they're not ground, I recommend you add them to your liquid ingredients and let them soak a little bit first before mixing them in with the rest of the flour. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this banana coconut oil mixture stirred in here. This should be a very thick batter, really, is what you're going to have. Whenever you're making a sweetbread, that's what you're looking at. And you know what I forgot? I forgot the sugars. So it just dawned on me. Thought I had on I knew there was something I was forgetting. So your sugars are going to be totally up to you. When I'm making stuff like this, I like to use a combination of coconut sugar. I mean, it kind of fits anyway. It's a, banana coconut pineapple bread. So what I'm going to do, you need a total of 1.5 cups of sugar, but obviously you can tailor the amount of sugar according to your own tastes. If you want to go a lower sugar, the nice thing about coconut sugar is it actually has less sugar per cup than your regular organic evaporated cane sugar does. So basically this is your white sugar, but I don't get regular white sugar. I always get the organic sugar from Costco. So I'm going to go ahead and put maybe just a shy, because we got all those bananas in there, you can cut back on the sugar. So I'll just put a shy cup, maybe that's closer to 3/4 of a cup of the white sugar. Okay, now let's finish mixing that in there. Okay, now we're ready to add the batter to our bread pan. So what I've got here is 2 cast iron. I got the Lodge cast iron bread pans. I love these things. And I will link to, I don't even know if they sell them as a double set anymore, you know, 2 in a set. But if I can find that link to the set that I bought, I'll go ahead and post that below in the description box. Don't forget to hit show more. So what I do is I like to take my cast iron pans, add a little coconut oil to the pans as well, set them on the wood stove or on any other heat source, let them heat through a little bit and get nice and warm, and then melt that extra oil down in there. So that will help make it crispier around the bottom and the sides, and also make it a little bit more stick free. So then you go ahead and just start pouring your batter in there, trying to make sure you keep it equal. So I'll usually pour a little into one, a little into the other, and then just kind of eyeball it from there, trying to keep it as even as possible per pan. Oh, and I forgot to say what to preheat your oven to, but though I will have already added in text, make sure it's at 350 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in the toaster oven, clean up a little bit, and while these are baking, we'll get to the pineapple icing so that you can have that ready when your bread comes out. All right, so moving on to the pineapple icing. This is actually super easy, and you really only need 2 ingredients, and that is your freeze-dried pineapple. I get this from Mother Earth. If you remember, I did a video not too long ago about my recent bulk purchases, and I bought a good sized bag of the freeze-dried pineapple and then vacuum sealed it in my jars like I have right here. So this and a little bit of water is all you need. You can also add some vanilla extract to it, or even some more of your pineapple extract, but it's really not necessary because it's already very, very pineapple-y. And because the pineapple is so sweet as is, you do not need to add any sugar to this, and it makes a very tasty icing that just adds a little more flavor to that bread. All right, so let's go ahead and open this up. Okay, nice little seal I got going on there. And then what I like to do, you can use whatever kind of processor you have, whether it be a blender or whatever. I have a coffee grinder. I have 2 of these, one for coffee beans and then one for things like this. And that's what this one is reserved for. So I'm going to be putting this in there, and I want to get at least a 1/2 cup of the powder total. So I'm just going to add my pineapple in here. You want, if you use this kind of coffee grinder, which I'll also link to below, don't get it too full. In fact, that's probably a little bit too full, but I'm going to go ahead and put it on there like that. So I'm just going to keep doing that and adding it to my cup until I get the amount I want. Okay, right there I have a 1/2 cup. So that took 3 runs of the in this thing for me to get a 1/2 cup of the pineapple powder. That's actually quite a bit of pineapple. Look at that. Look at how much of the jar. I used to have a jar just to get that much. And I may still make more. It just depends. The beauty of this is if you decide you go to put it on your bread and you decide it's not enough, just whip up some more. Super easy. So now all you need to do is get your whatever good, clean, healthy water you have and add it to this. And I don't have a good measurement for this because I just pour it in and I keep adding it to it until it gets the consistency I want. And so that's going to be entirely up to you. If you want it to be more like something you're going to drizzle over the bread, you're going to want it more runny than that. I like to make this one more like a frosting, so I keep it a little on the thicker side. Sometimes I like to drizzle and sometimes I don't. So I just pour a little water in there and mix it, and that pineapple will start absorbing that water. It's even good. And by the way, I do actually leave little chunks in there too. I don't powder it all completely up. So that will also be a matter of choice. If you want it totally smooth, then really make sure that you run that a good enough time that all your pieces get fully powdered up. So that's actually pretty good. I didn't even have to add any more water to it. But that's why it's a good time to mix this now, because you might let it sit and as it absorbs that water, it's going to get a little bit thicker, and so you may decide you want to add just a little bit more. And you know what I've decided? I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of my homemade vanilla extract to this. I'm not going to add any more pineapple because it's already going to be very pineapple-y as it is, but I think the vanilla extract will add nice smooth flavor to it. And so to about this much, you want to go about a teaspoon of extract is going to be plenty. So we'll just kind of pour that in there. Again, I just eyeball it. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that I think I'm going to want to make a little bit more than this. I decided I kind of want a little bit thicker amount of frosting, quote unquote, on top of the bread than I made last time. So I think I might just double this. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And then when that bread's done, I'll go ahead and bring it out and we'll get it frosted. And one more thing I forgot to say while I'm still waiting for that bread is that the time that you bake the bread is going to be up to about an hour. So you're going to want to set your timer for 45 minutes and then check it at the 45-minute mark. See, like if you're in a toaster oven, I have to really watch that because it does get closer to the element and I may want to throw some foil over it at that point. And then you can check and see if it's done. If it's starting to pull away from the side or even crack in the middle, it's most likely done. But an hour is a pretty good time, but at least check it at 45 minutes so you'll know just how long you want to bake it. And the other thing I don't want to forget to say is that if you're interested in actually having the written recipe where you can just copy and paste it into your own document, then that will be posted over on our Patreon page. So remember, you can find the Patreon link down below in the description box. Again, hit show more, and it is free to all. So even if you're not a patron on Patreon, you can still follow us there and see all of our posts without having to pay a single cent to see it. So that recipe will be there for anyone if you want to copy and paste. Just remember, if you decide to share the recipe or if you got your own channel and you want to make a video of it, just make sure you let people know where you got that from. Okay, well, I pulled the bread out of the oven and I've actually let it sit and cool for a little bit because that's going to make it better, easier to get out of the pan. You don't want to try to dump it out of the pan when it's really, really hot. It's more likely to fall apart on you. So here's some tricks to when you go to get your bread out of the pan. Make sure that you take a knife or a really thin spatula that you can even work under the base of the loaf of bread. And get my little covers out of the way here. But doing this at least and kind of loosening it up is going to make it much easier to get out. So let me set this one aside. And then we'll just dump this on here. You don't want to leave it in there for too long because the one thing about the cast iron and leaving your breads in there and stuff is they can start to sweat and then get kind of yucky at the bottom. Okay, now depending on how you're going to do your frosting or your icing, if you're wanting to drizzle it, putting it on while it's really warm is best because then it's going to more easily run down the sides and have a really cool look to it. However, if you're wanting to keep it more on top and keep it a little bit thicker and not have it running everywhere, you may want to let it cool down to at least a little above room temperature. I'm going to go ahead and put some of this on one now and just see how it is because it isn't too warm on the top. It's looking pretty good. I do want it fairly thick, but I actually don't mind if it melts a little bit and runs down the side. The one thing about this particular kind of icing, because I don't have butter in it or anything like that, it's not going to melt so much. It might still be, because it's warmer, kind of run a little bit easier, but not as much as your butter-based icing would. So I'm going to go ahead and do this other one because that's looking pretty good. And this looks like just the right amount. So I did go ahead and double. I ended up using that whole jar of pineapple. And so I did end up doubling the amount I made. So that would actually be a full cup of the pineapple powder plus however much water I needed, because I didn't measure out the water. I just added it until I got the thickness that I wanted in the icing or the frosting. Okay, there we go. The pineapple coconut banana bread is all done. So I'm just going to let it finish cooling, and then when it's done, I'll go ahead and slice it up. Even though it's a dead of winter, here's a great way to get some summery tropical flavor into the middle of your dark gray winter, just to bring a little bit of extra joy into your life and your family's life. And again, feel free to look through that recipe and make any changes that are going to suit you and your health needs. Hey, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.